because it's so funny because I'm reading something now that's talking about creativity and how that's essential to the human soul and sense of well-being. But you could think of creativity in a broad sense. You don't have to be an artist, though. That's a kind of, that's a fine art, you could say, you know. But creating a business, making children, talk about an act of creation. Oh my God, you know. Yeah, but yeah, I think people, like in my practice, when they lack a connection to themselves, the living becomes a little stilted and stultified, and yeah. No, I'm thinking of my daughter, and that's not the case. She's a lawyer, you know. She makes good money, and she's happy. And she does. I know she would be angry. She's not creative in the sense that most people think of creativity, but she's happy. So I just negated what I was about to say.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, an author podcast where we talk to authors, writers. If you love poetry, and you love all things writing, you're going to love today's episode. I'm excited. Ronald's here with us. We're going to talk about his journey as an author. He's got an amazing background, a very deep well to draw from, and a fun person to talk to as well. Ronald, welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm looking forward to what's going to unfold.
Excellent. I love your optimism. This is great. We're going to have a great conversation. I'm looking forward to this. Ronald, tell everybody where you are in this great big world of ours.
Well, I'm currently at this very moment on the Lower East Side of New York City on a spring day. Beautiful.
And you made time to talk to us. I love this. Thank you for being here. This is great. I love New York City. Been there many times. People say you leave your heart in San Francisco, but I think I left my soul in New York. So there you go. How's that?
How's that? I like it. Yeah. It's an exciting place to live. I've been here for quite a while. Now that I think about it, I think I can call myself a New Yorker now.
Are you?
I came here in 1979.
There you go.
Yeah, that's quite some time.
I think you've earned your street cred.
Yes, I think
so. You did. You're it. I like it. Tell me a little bit, Ronald, your journey as a writer, your love for poetry. Come on, where did that come from?
Oh, there's a story there, okay?
Okay.
And I've told it a number of times. I hope in telling it this time, maybe something new will emerge from my mouth. But it basically, the poetry sprung from an experience I had when I was in college. I was a wayward, I went to college because I was told I was going to go to college. I had no clue whatsoever. I mean, truly, no clue. I only went to college because I realized in the summer I hadn't applied anywhere. So like seriously, in July or August, I applied to the school VCU that was in Richmond near where I lived. And that's how I started. But I had no clue as to what I wanted to become career-wise. But I was a biology major. I remember that. I had an experience, okay? And that experience aroused something in me. And it was because of that, I started looking. Well, I don't know if I started looking or if it happened to me, because what happened is I remember being in an English class, because you had to take English, and the professor's reading the poem. It's a Wordsworth poem. It's from lines on Tintern Abbey. And he came to a section, which is the epigram, is that what it's called? To the book I have, these lines from Wordsworth. And it struck me. because what the poem was addressing spoke to an experience I had that, if I may sound, I don't know how I'm sounding,
Oh yeah.
but it was like beyond words. It was ineffable. Okay. I mean, here, this is where it crosses over into the mystical, the spiritual, or whatever you want to call that. I'm reading an essay right now who calls it the unconscious of existence, whatever that is. That spoke to me, and Wordsworth's line spoke to me. So I started developing an interest in poetry because it was in poetry that I found affirmation of my experience. And whatever that was sort of then organized my life. Before that, as I said, I was just kind of living, existing. And after that, I started reading a lot of poetry, became interested in literature where I wasn't before, became interested in maybe creativity. I wasn't, I didn't have any creative, well, that's not true. I had very little creative juice. But after that, I was hanging out with the people that were aspiring writers and artists and actors and whatnot, because that was the crowd I hung with at college. And so I just got interested in writing, and that stayed with me. I mean, I'm thankful for it. It doesn't lead to an easy life, but in another way, I think of it as freedom. I was given the gift of freedom because I knew what I wanted to do. And so decisions were kind of easy. So anything that at that time, that was before real adult responsibilities. It was easy to decide what to do because anything that helped me to write, that's what I was going to do. So I wasn't too concerned of what kind of job I had. I worked many, many odd jobs in New York City to support myself, which you could do back then. Life was far cheaper, in the early 80s, So it was kind of, I had fun,
So if we went back to that English class for a second, had you skipped that class that day or not taken that course, where might have you been? Where would you have gone, right?
Right. Well, this is another woolly-headed idea. I would like to think, how do you say it? That ask and ye shall receive thing?
Yeah.
I think something was percolating in me and was unconsciously putting out communications and sort of and like as if the universe responded.
Yeah, like a feeler type thing. You're feeling it out into the world, and you're open to it.
That's it. I'm open, right? I just had a patient that talked about that. Like she was talking about, she was excited. Like there are portals opening up in my life that I hadn't seen before. And that reminds me of a saying from, I'm getting a little excited here. That reminds me of for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, from one of the Gospels, right? You have to be ready for it. Something in my interior world has to be ready and prepared me for this, so that when the portal, so I could see the portal when it appeared. Otherwise, I'm sort of blind. I'm blind to it. I'm unaware.
Yeah.
And so I would like to think something else would have happened. But, that's just speculation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we get little taps on the shoulder
Yeah.
from now and then. And if we don't respond, it just moves to somebody else.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So be open, receptive to that.
You have to be receptive, to be flexible and flexible and open. Yeah. And so I like it with what we were talking about earlier, these connections. And I feel like that's what's happening. I'm
Yeah.
sort of seeking, and then here's a paper suddenly shows up that kind of speaks to my interest, and I wasn't even looking for it. It just sort of
It's interesting.
popped up,
Yeah, I'm a musician,
Ah,
and one thing I love about music is being creative. But I know that I can go to my guitar, my acoustic guitar, and pluck an empty, like an open string, like A, and a guitar across the room will pick up on that vibration from that note, from that string,
vibrations.
and
Yeah.
it'll start resonating on another guitar
Wow.
across the room. They both start to work in harmony
Yeah.
just from hitting one string.
Yeah.
It's kind of life, right? It's life.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what started it all. And then, I graduate from college and I'm like, okay, well, what do I do now? Uh, and so I remember being in the career office. Is that what this is called in college? Something like that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember looking at looking at the bulletin board, and there was a something from the Peace Corps, and like, oh, that spoke to me. I didn't look for it. I was like probably scared of going out into the world. Like, what am I going to do now? And so I applied to the Peace Corps. The first job I applied for, I didn't. They rejected because I wasn't. My degree wasn't specific enough. I wanted to go. There was a job in a fishery in Cameroon, and I wanted to. I had a biology degree, and I thought, oh, okay, but you had to have a degree in oceanography or fisheries or something like that. So I ended up going to Costa Rica, and got to experience Costa Rica before it became a eco-tourist mecca.
Yeah.
And it was gorgeous.
One of the benefits of that position, I think you mentioned to me earlier, was that you had time. You could work. You could work the way you wanted and create more time. You could spread out your work over a period of time.
You remember,
right?
yeah.
Explain that. Yeah.
And I experimented. Like I would work for 2 months and I would have 4 months free, or I'd work 2 or 3 days a week because it involved traveling. It was a very strange job. And so I had time to read. And I started reading, I read a lot, read books, started reading books and poetry. And then I had the idea, I sort of had the idea of pursuing writing. So when I returned to the United States, again, I come here having spent 2 years in the jungle. I mean, I lived for a bit in not even a tree house, 2 platforms in a tree. I was fortunate. These things, how do they happen? I just fortunate. I'm wandering. I was initially stationed in a place inland on the Nicoyan Peninsula. It was inland, but part of my job took me to the ocean, to the coast. And while I was there, my motorcycle broke down. So it broke down. And so I was stuck there because this is Costa Rica. Things take time. They don't just repair anything. So I was there and I lived on the beach. Now, here again is one of those things. I'm just walking around and I met this couple, they were travelers. And I bumped into them, and they were living on the beach, and they invited me because I couldn't work, I couldn't get back to where I was living,
Right.
so I lived, on the beach with them, and then out of that, I met an expatriate who had a place there that was available because he had met a local lady and was living with her. So he offered me the place. And it was right on a stream. There was a wooden shelter, a big long palm thatch, maybe 20, 30 feet long, palm thatched, yeah, shelter where the fire was. And then on the stream was this tree that had two platforms. And so in the dry season, I would sleep there in the trees, which, which I loved until during the rainy season, this little trickle of a stream, which was literally no more than 3 or 4 inches in places, became a raging torrent, and it took away the tree, just wiped it clean during a torrential downpour. So I don't know how we got onto that. But I come back from that experience. I went to school at William and Mary, so I go back there. I'm there a day and I say, there's nothing here for me. I clearly knew I couldn't stay there. And then definitely knew I couldn't stay at my parents'. There was just no way. And fortunately, I had a friend who had visited me in Costa Rica, a painter friend. He had moved to New York, and he invited me up to just visit one weekend, and I didn't leave. I haven't left. I came up and I said, well, okay, I can stay here. I don't know what I said. All I know is I didn't leave.
There you go.
Wow. And I found work, and then I got the idea of getting an MFA degree, and I was fortunately accepted into Columbia, so I didn't have to move. And so I went to school, and it just, built from the writing part.
So if you were standing in front of a classroom of new writers, authors, poets, and you're there as a guest lecturer to talk about writing, what would your subject matter be? What would your topic of the day be, just off the top of your head, right in the moment? What do you think would be valuable for someone listening, sitting in those seats like you were sitting?
It's a Nike. I'm a Nike ad. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do,
just
do it. That's all. I mean, I know it's not as easy as that, but no one said, because I'm a psychoanalyst, so I sometimes will say to people, they won't do things, and I said, whoever said you had to feel like doing it? There's a concept, there's a feeling, but the feeling doesn't have to dictate the behavior. I can acknowledge what I'm feeling. I hope one can acknowledge what I'm feeling and act otherwise. So it's the same. It's like the gym. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't like working out per se, but I know I like how I feel afterwards. And it's the same with any discipline. You just got to do it. Right? And it's in the process of trying to do it that makes you, where you can call yourself a musician or whatever you want to label yourself.
I think of it as, and again, comparing writing to music. For me, the idea of going to practice scales, that's no interest to me at all. But the result of doing the work, writing the words, writing your story, writing your journals, and writing in your poetry, the result is then you can share that with the world in a different format. But you need the skill set and the routine and repetition to get the result. Yeah,
I'm reminded of T.S. Eliot, who would advise writers: you practice your craft, you practice, so that when the inspiration does come, whatever inspiration is, you're not fumbling with how to, move your fingers on the fret. You have the skills,
right,
to let the spirit move through you unhindered as much as it can be.
Yeah. And that becomes muscle memory over time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just write, you write, you write, you write. And then it's just, again, when that tap comes on the shoulder,
Yeah.
hey, this is where I want you to go. You have the skills to do that.
And that's one of the things I like about writing, from what I is that because now my interests are elsewhere. I'm not one of those people who become a lifelong anything. My life has been, I was this for a little bit, then I'm this for a little bit. I have different the passions move through me, though I think there's a thread running through it all.
Yeah.
One thing I remember is I remember struggling, not knowing what to write, and then just making myself do something, and then I guess this is the magic of it. Something happens, or the poem goes somewhere, and I think it's in the struggle. It's not always a struggle, but the struggle gets you somewhere.
Yeah.
But I don't know where I'm going. It's not like I have a road map. I'm going to Topeka. I just know I'm going somewhere. If I stick with it.
Yeah.
And what I might produce, I don't know, maybe good or not good, but that's, I mean, it's almost secondary to just having gone through and done the work. And it's nice when I get a poem that I like. And I'm okay. I used to be okay with, so this isn't great or whatever. But, I made something.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole creation process, I think instilled in all of us is a desire to create something.
Right.
Whether it's having children in your life or
Right.
creating relationships, creating art, music, writing. There's something in us that just bent towards and leans towards expressing ourselves, something outside of ourselves.
Because it's so funny because I'm reading something now that's talking about creativity and how that's essential to the human soul and sense of well-being. But you could think of creativity in a broad sense. You don't have to be an artist, though. That's a kind of, that's a fine art, you could say, but creating a business, making children, talk about an act of creation. Oh my God. Yeah. But,
exactly.
I think people, like in my practice, when they lack a connection to themselves, the living becomes a little stilted and stultified, and I'm thinking of my daughter, and that's not the case. She's a lawyer, she makes good money, and she's happy. And she does. I know she would be angry. She's not creative in the sense that most people think of creativity, but she's happy.
Yeah.
So I just negated what I was about to say.
Tell me about your poetry. There's so many different paths in poetry for people that are reading. I want to expose the audience to what you're writing, and so that we can match up the reader to you and your writing. Tell us kind of big picture. Where do you kind of go with your writings? Like, do you have a theme to what you write about?
Well, I think in the book, I think there's a theme of loss and longing.
Okay.
I respond to loss and longing. Like the other day, I went to a Dvorak concert, a symphony, New World Symphony. And I really responded to the second movement. The other three were loud and big. But the second movement it had that feeling of longing. And it was slow and mournful. And I just responded to it, And there's something about it, about loss and longing. But as someone said, I'd like to believe this, that the book is about. I'm just reading the blurb now, but
Yeah,
I kind of
yeah, yeah.
like it. Having learned from his travels, the journeyer is freed to return home, confident that despite our socioeconomic and political fractures, everyday human existence is grounded in a shared sacred mystery. So I like that. You
Hmm.
know, I don't want to name it. It is. I don't know what it is, but the mystery of living, the wonder of it all.
Yeah.
I mean, if people would slow down, like life is like, kind of wild and miraculous. I mean, I sometimes will just be dumbfounded by the myriad expressions of life on this planet. It just blows my mind. And, I mean, from insects to germs to bacteria, viruses,
Yeah.
mammals, birds, whatever, just blows my mind.
I asked you before hitting record if you would do us the honor of sharing a little bit from your book and reading to us some of your poetry. I think as a listener and a reader,
Mhm.
to hear the voice of the writer, the author, to read to us is a joy and a kind of a special moment for us to hear you share some of your writing with us. Can you give us some kind of insight to what you're going to read to us? Maybe a little bit behind the scenes of it, and then can
Okay,
you read a little bit?
this
That'd be
is a,
great.
a middling poem. It's maybe 25 lines, so you have a
Yeah,
sense of how long it is.
yeah.
Uh yeah, okay, and it's called the Still.
Mm.
Okay,
Okay.
Still. It was a moment, if that, among the many diversionary and picayune moments. So many in a gray day were the bristled strokes of a neighbor sweeping the stone floor of the patio garden below, and a hacking cough disturbed a calm sought for and intermittently found that morning, balmy, unusual for October, more so for the gray from which one expected a brisk slap, not the diaphanous embrace of air, which quickened an unease growing with the steady sweeping of a broom over stones. And I remember standing, looking down into the still green garden, transfixed by the stark fact of ivy and brick, eave and pigeon, and a man bent over a wooden broom, coughing against a gray backdrop. And it had to have been just then, the moment between intimation and thought, that a drift of silence just out of reach, beyond the dome of sky from somewhere deep inside, somewhere ancestral, brushed me faintly, like a breath, all my skin alert, apprehensive, and in my ear whispered what I'm only now beginning to hear. How that
That's a great visual too. I'm seeing the ivy and the brick and seeing the broom. I'm hearing the sound of the broom. Everything.
oh, so
It's
you can
amazing.
see. But
Yeah.
what I'm interested in, I'm interested in evoking.
Yeah.
Like when I heard the music that got to me, it literally touched me in my body,
Hmm.
and I had little tears, and I was moved. And so that's what I would hope, and that's what I hope poetry or any art does. To me, it's simple. I'm either touched by it or I'm not. You know, it's that simple.
Yeah.
So,
How does build a bridge for me between your writing, your poetry, and the people that you serve today? What's the common bridge there between the creative side of you writing poetry and the creativity that you use when you work with your clients?
well, I think what links it all is I don't know how to say it. is the unconscious,
Yeah.
which just means it's what is not conscious. We all egos and we have our thoughts, and I think it's a fallacy of many people live as if what I think to serve the ego. But I think it's backwards, that my ego is in service of what is not conscious to me. I hope, I don't know if this makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Fine.
I'm trying to be more porous to my unconscious and let it direct me. And I'm serving it. I just have to listen. So what's the connection? I have to use with poetry, the poetry, the energy, the inspiration sprung from the non-conscious part of my being. I didn't sit there and like plot a poem. I'm working through it. Where does it come from?
Yeah.
I'm not willing the thoughts. It feels like they're coming to me. Okay. So when I'm with my patients, I'm learning to kind of relax and just pay attention to whatever arises in me, to let my mind go and try not to. Freud called it, what is it? Evenly suspended attention. It's kind of just letting go, not focus on anything, and just pay attention to what comes into my field of awareness. And so I think it's utilizing the same creative source, or it's creative in a different way. Because I'm thinking then, I consider, is anything that's happening in me related to the person before me who's talking? And I'm just wondering. And so, and I have to decide how much of that is from my past and it triggers my subjective response, and how much of it is about something the two of us are creating.
Right.
Yeah, making sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, in that way, I feel like I'm utilizing I'm listening to my unconscious to help me be with this person and to understand that person.
When a patient comes to meet with you, Ronald, I'm sure you see a lot of different variations to this, but what are they begrudgingly carrying with them when they walk in to meet with you? What are some of the things that you're seeing people carrying around that had they just let this thing, lay it down, or right, you can remove some of that weight? What are some of the weights people carry?
What first comes to mind? A lot of people are. This may reflect my own value system. I don't know, but you asked. So I think they're too conscious of the other, that is everything outside of me. Mm-hmm. And being aware of the other, worrying about how others think about me, because a lot of people worry about that, I then lose connection to myself. I think a lot of people are connected to themselves. So when you try to live life pleasing others, you're going to get all knotted up and you don't, how do I know? If I'm pleasing X, then I'm pleasing Y and pleasing Z. Where am I in all that?
Right.
If I know what I want, that's what I liked when I had that experience and was driven into poetry. That's why I call it freedom. It was clear. I didn't have to worry about what the other thought.
Yeah.
But the other matters. Don't get me wrong, because sometimes I think all this art stuff aside, what's most important in life is relations, human relations,
It's very interesting, Ronald. I just did an interview prior to meeting with you today. And in that conversation, it came up that when there was no social media, when there was no phones in our pockets, people would look in a mirror, and it'd be a private conversation with yourself to see yourself in the mirror and make your own determination on what you see and all of that. We've replaced mirrors with phones.
Right.
And now we live in the public eye.
Right.
We live in front of others, and with all of our hassles, with all of our hang-ups, with all our insecurities. But we're doing it in front of people instead of in the privacy of our room in front of a mirror.
Right, right.
Our mirrors have been replaced by phones. So you're talking about this whole opinion of the outside, right? Like, how do we kind of make those two things work together? Like, how do we do that?
Well, that's a good question. You know, it's a balancing act because others matter. We live in a world, and certainly not for a life of hermetic solitude. But I am a believer, like, know thyself, you know? Yeah. And I think life, because I hear in people, because what I'm interpreting as a lack of connection to myself, I then don't know who I am, and then I'm too easily swayed by the external world and all its, do this, do that, be a doctor, be a plumber. You know, like, I don't know what guides that, you know? So I think that's a problem people have. I have a number that are just too concerned with what other people think of them. I remember, you know, like, if you're looking for love, you know, if you want love, well, you're going to live a gnarled, knotted existence. I remember someone telling me, don't worry about being liked. Just seek respect. You know, what is respect? I mean, it's some regard for your being, how you present and conduct yourself in life. People respect that. I mean, I like love, but I think I would rather have everyone's respect.
And then the idea of identity, finding our place in this world, finding why we're here, right?
Well,
what our path is.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. When you talk like that, path, that's seeking meaning to life, which I think is that's the work of the unconscious. The ego, living in this realm, is to survive. I'm a Darwinian through and through, evolution, right? The organism's seeking to survive. Okay, but humans, and we're finding out the more we look at the natural world, consciousness exists in way more creatures than we ever thought. Like you read the Bible, the only thing with consciousness are humans, right? And the rest of the kingdom is there for our dominion to rule over. Okay. Why did I bring up consciousness? Having consciousness confounds what might have been a more natural, I don't know if the word natural is right. It confounds living. I mean, really, what causes suffering is ego. I mean, you even in simple, like Buddhist, or the little I know about that in Eastern practices, it's what the ego and its desires and wants is what creates suffering.
Right.
And so that's so people come in, they're suffering because they have an ego, and their ego has values that it has been taught from the culture. But I think those values are distracting, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And when you go back over the history of your life and where you've come from and the things you've lived through, the context of where you are in the world, you're sleeping under a tree on the beach, and now you're in New York City, farther from the beach, farther from sleeping in a tree, but you're still the same person, just in a different
Right.
spot in your life, right?
Mhm.
But those lessons always carry through. And again, whether or not you have very little, including a motorcycle that doesn't work, to where you are today,
Right.
right? You're still the same human.
I'd like to think that a little more. I hope I'm a little more accepting than I was back then, or that experience has taught me to be more forgiving and accepting of life and human condition. So
Yeah. If I could give you a big eraser that could take out a moment of your past and kind of your journey that would make your life easier, is there anything that you would remove?
oh, that's an interesting question. I sometimes in my wildest musings, I think questions like that, the world is as it is because that's how it is. And I
Right.
really think this, and it's really kind of way out there. You change one thing and it has the possibility of changing everything
Everything.
in the big, long metaphysical picture. So if you change one thing about my past, then who knows who I would have become? Because I don't know how it would affect my interactions with the world and what opportunities may or may
Right.
not have been present. But I will say the first thing that came to mind, because I practice trying to be aware of what comes into my awareness immediately
Yeah.
without thinking, and just take note of it. The first thing I thought was I was in a car accident when I was 14 or 15, maybe 16. You know, we were young. The driver was drunk, rolled over, hit a lamppost, rolled over, and I hurt my back. So, and I think it's caused me a little problem. And I don't know why. I just wonder what life might have been had I not hurt my back. I don't know. I don't know why I think that.
Interesting.
You know, 'cause it
Interesting.
has very little direct bearing on what I did, but yeah,
Yeah. I think a lot of us get trapped in a why me scenario. You know, why is this happening to me? Why did this event happen? Why did I end up in a tree, sleeping in a tree on the beach? Like, why me? Right.
right,
And why not you? Like, it maybe that's going to lead to something.
right,
And that hindsight 2020 thing, right?
right,
So looking back, everything kind of seems to kind of fit somehow
right.
magically. And at the moment, though, it doesn't make any sense.
But you know, I also understand talking like that, and I think like that also may be from a place of privilege, because relative to the
True.
world at large, even though had, you know, I come from working class people, and my experience of the world until I left for college was very, very limited, and I had my share of emotional. I don't know if I'd call them traumas, but you know, disturbances in my life. I'm thinking of like Syria or what's happening in Gaza,
Right.
people living on
Yeah.
constant. I cannot fathom living under that constant terror. I just cannot, you know. But I know people, I have patients who have lived in domestic terror and sexual terror from children. I feel fortunate that I didn't have, well, at least I think I didn't have to go through that.
Yeah.
You know,
I love that you called that out. I love that you called that. That's good.
you know, uh, but you know, humans are resilient. That's, you know, yeah, you know, I have two patients who had three that have sexual trauma. You know, they're making their way. I mean, what other attitude can you take? It happened, right? I know this may sound cold, but I sometimes, wonder when people classify, well, you know, abuse is not a feeling. I'm getting into trouble here, but
Yeah.
you sort of have to deal, right? I mean, you just have to deal. Life isn't fair. Life sucks.
Yeah.
It's scary. To me, if I get in touch with it, I think in my base, I'm scared. I'm just a scared little being in life, And if I could, I'd run and hide next to my mother. But for whatever reason, I'm learning to just just do what I have to do, and I live a moderate life,
Hmm.
you know.
And for those people who are dealing with things that are beyond them, that's why there's people like you to kind of come to get a reset, to find support,
Right.
to have those conversations, to bring those
Right.
things that they carry with those weights, and you can uncover that for them and
Right.
help them carry the weight.
I have this idea, another received woolly-headed idea. I'm into the concept of energy, and the metaphor and the concept being to be as unblocked as possible. And so all these traumas bind psychic energy into these complexes that consume attention and energy. And when you work through whatever it is, that energy then is released, that is bound in that activity, is then released and made available for life purposes. And so, in some sense, because that's what I'm finding out from what I think from psychedelic work, that are all these things that are consuming me in my unconscious. But as I work through them, which I hope that's what I'm doing, that I'm there's a release. There's this feeling of being liberated because more energy is available
Right.
to use towards creative ends, towards life pursuits, because all that requires energy. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
You responded. You did what was that?
I'm with you on this. I resonate with that. Like, back to the guitar thing. Hit one string, the guitar across the room starts to reverberate with that same string. It's the exact same string. It's the same frequency.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that concept of frequencies, but it's all woolly-headed because you get down to the level of, hardcore physics. They'll tell you, oh, you're talking nonsense. Physics, we're talking about particles, not this complex world in which we live. But yeah, so I'm into that. So energy. Oh yeah, so each person, I want them to have as much energy available for their life pursuits. And I can clearly see in some people how it's being bound up in these psychic machinations that we all create of life.
Yeah.
And it's so clear to me, but I can't tell them that
Yeah.
because that kind of knowledge, unless there's an emotional component to it, doesn't change people. You can tell people, smoking, it'll kill you.
Yeah.
But if you're not ready to hear that, or I don't know, it's just a funny process. This psychology, psychoanalytic business, and how people change.
Yeah. There's one person I talked to who helps people in a similar fashion. He's very light with his patients, and he'll say to them sometimes, depending on the patient, that he's offering them a ladder. Here's a ladder. This is going to help you to get over yourself.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I love that. He doesn't mean to be belittling, It's just that you seem to be caught. You seem to be blocked. And this ladder will help you get over yourself and let's help you beyond yourself. And I'm like, I like that. That's kind of interesting. Ronald, tell us about your website.
Oh,
so we can send people to you, right? And then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. You can get there 3 ways. The simplest is ronaldlieber.com, Lieber. If you want to use my full name, it's Ronald Okuaki Lieber, OKUAKI.com. Or you can type in thelongjourneyout.com, the name of the book, and it should get you to the website. Yeah, and if anyone out there, if anyone's listening, if you buy the book, if any of the poems do anything, please let me know.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I love that.
Yeah.
Ronald, thank you so much. I could talk to you all day. I know you got other things to do, but the fact that you made this much time for us, I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your poem with us and your writing with us. I think that's really special that you would do that for us. We're watching your journey with great anticipation for more.
Okay.
So keep me in mind. I'd always love to have you back and have another conversation.
Really? I'm going to take you 100%. Up on that. You better
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. Very good.
As long as you read to us again.
Yes, I love doing that. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Ronald. Everybody, all the information for Ronald in the show notes. Make sure you reach out to Ronald. Grab a copy of his book and read all the poetry. It's amazing. Leave a great review as well. Let people know how awesome this book is. Ronald, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to our guest for being part of Living the Next Chapter. Make sure you go like, follow, share this episode to support your fellow authors. And a reminder to always leave a review every time you buy a book from your favorite author. It means so much to them. It's your words back to the author on why this book means something to you. That's one responsibility that we have as readers, to support our authors by leaving great reviews. I know you've probably forgotten more than you've remembered to leave reviews. So my little ask of you here as we're exiting out of the episode, to go grab that stack of books behind you, put them on your desk and go to the websites where you purchase these books and leave a review now. I know you bought the book years ago. Go leave a review today. Let the author know how much you love their book. Give really detailed information about why you love this book so much. Let's celebrate our authors by leaving a great review. And thank you for listening to Living the Next Chapter. Thank you for being here. See you next time.